I was really excited when Ratnaprabha asked me if I wanted to come here to North London to give a talk, and I immediately said, the Dharma, it's my favorite jewel. They're all interconnected anyway, but I especially like the Dharma. But I also like coming here to North London because that's where I became a Buddhist. I was made a mitra here. Well, first center I came to was North London. And so it has a really special place in my heart. So hello everyone who is here in the North London Centre. Hello those of you who are following online. So we are not sitting in the same place, but we are connected. And also I was told sometimes it's recorded, and so hello to people in the future. I mean, your present, my future. That is amazing, isn't it? Imagine if YouTube was already working when, 2,500 years ago. You wouldn't be watching me, you would be watching the Buddha himself talking. It would have been so much more interesting. So, the Dharma. There are many translations to this word. It's also called Dharma. So one is Sanskrit, the other one is Pali, which are old languages, similar to the ones the Buddha actually spoke. So many meanings for the word Dharma. One is just things. Dharma with small d is just things, conditioned things that could be material, could be mental, emotional, just small d Dharma. But the most interesting translations for us, or meanings, not translation, actually, meaning of the word Dharma, one is, it's translated as the truth, or the order, the law. Not law as in laws that judges and lawyers and all these people deal with, but law as in, going back to physics, the law of gravitation. It's a natural law. It's how things are, how reality actually is. So that is a meaning. And so it's said that the Buddha, who was born just a normal human being, he could have the experience of things as they really are. And then he tried to express this experience of how things actually are. So as Ratnaprabha said, physicists, for example, do try to explain how nature is, how reality is. And they're making some progress, but the Buddha could experience it in a much more direct way. So, but then he had to express that. So this expression of how things are according to the Buddha, we also say the teachings of the Buddha, it's another meaning for the word Dharma. But I have a problem with the word teaching, because teaching the Dharma means teaching anything. You've got a teacher who knows something, and you've got people watching it, trying to learn. And if they're good students, they will also understand what the teacher is trying to teach. But with the Buddha, something else happened. What he learned and he was trying to teach actually had transformed his mind. So us with the mind we've got, and I'm just assuming no one around here is enlightened. So the mind we've got, as Ratnaprabha was saying, we see things in a dual way, and it's really hard to just understand the Dharma with words, because reality is much more than what we can express with words. So I was thinking about an analogy. How could it be? How could we explain that? So imagine we all see things in black and white. Imagine that's how our eyes worked, black and white, everyone. And then you do something with your eyes, some technique, something, some practice, all of a sudden your eyes start seeing in color. Imagine how you're going to explain color to someone who only sees in black and white. So just pair up 1 minute, just talk to each other, just have some ideas how you're going to express, teach people to see color if they only see in black and white. What would you do? Those of you online, just reflect on your own. What would you do? Come on, 1 minute only, or 2.
I think you can explain the theory of this. Say some of the light components are different from the other light components in a different way. That would be part of the experience.
I loved seeing the energy in the room. So, any ideas? Yes, Anna.
I was just saying, when I was growing up, we had black and white TV, and my grandmother used to go to America to visit my aunt, her daughter, and they had colour TV, and she used to come back and tell us children about it. And we would all be open-mouthed at the thought of colour TV.
I remember when I was a student 30 years ago, I had a black and white television, and I remember watching a snooker championship, and someone said, "Oh, and now Steve Hendry is about to, hit the green ball." And the green ball, for those of you with black and white television, the green ball is the one next to the pink ball. So any idea, come on, how would you explain color? How would you help people to see in color?
Maybe use another analogy. So you can, I don't know, the one that came to mind, if you live in a 2D world, maybe you can say like, oh, well, imagine this another vantage point.
Yeah,
Which is like a
so analogies are really, really good.
And music is another analogy.
Music, okay, another analogy. So we're into analogies. Yep.
I think we talked a little bit about really appealing to someone's curiosity and really kind of almost asking them to humble themselves a little bit, being like, there is something completely different and more that you don't even, you can't even perceive yet. There's more than what we can understand.
Yeah. So I'm sure there are lots of ideas, but all those things you're saying are things the Buddha tried to do or to apply. So analogies, telling, making people curious, making it enticing. So it's difficult, isn't it? It's a hard thing to do. So how did the Buddha do that? He used words. So there are sometimes he would try to explain what he could experience with a very small sentence. Sometimes it would be a really long discourse that would take a whole night. So the use of words is important. We do communicate with words a lot. say a small sentence. There is one that is very famous in the scriptures. Is one way the Buddha was trying to explain what he experienced, and it goes like this: this being that becomes, from the arising of this that arises. This not being that does not become, from the ceasing of this that ceases. I always found it very frustrating that I could hear this so many times. Apparently people would hear that and boom, become enlightened. For me, it never worked. But what the Buddha is saying is what is really central to the Dharma, which is conditionality. Means this being, some things being, say my parents being, I could come to existence. But I depend on this body. So this body one day will stop working. It's already going that way, but anyway, will stop working. So I won't exist anymore. So these are all these conditions for me to be here talking to you. They are endless, infinite, I became a Buddhist in this center. If this center was not here, probably wouldn't be here talking to you. I would exist, but wouldn't be talking to you. Everything is so rich, so interconnected. So this is a really important part of the Dharma. So words like that. Another way is also using words, but as we said before, the rational mind doesn't really understand the Dharma. So you need to shatter your rational mind. So you can do this with paradoxes, koans. That story, the so famous koan of what's the sound of one hand clapping? You need two, so one. So you don't understand it. So you need, actually, that's the idea. You are there not understanding. I was watching the rugby championship the other day. I loved it. I was watching it, not understanding. I said, that can't be true. That sport can't exist. That is wrong. No, that's right. This is right. No, that's wrong. Amazing. It's so good to be in a place where you don't understand anything. It really enriches your mind. So another way the Buddha taught was by using images. This is an image. I don't particularly think the Buddha liked images of himself. Once people asked him, I think when he was approaching death, how can we symbolize you or have an image of you? And he just folded his robes and put a bowl like this. So that's as far as it was. For him, it was an image. But I particularly like images of the Buddha. I really like this one. Long time ago, about 20 years ago, there was an exhibition at the Royal Academy in London, and there were these really old images, statues, or we call them rupas, of the Buddha, but they were so lovely. There was a kind of smile, and it was so kind. I remember going there many times and just watching the smiles of those Buddhas, and it really made something else happen in my heart. So you can't say the Buddha was really loving, kind, but actually you see an image of someone smiling. Wow, it has a different effect on you. It said once the Buddha gave a talk. Actually, it was not a talk. He didn't talk. He just held of lotus flowers. Some stories say it was a white lotus. Some others start making it more beautiful. It was a golden lotus. Anyway, there he was holding. That was his talk. Probably a bit frustrating. Can you imagine if you came here all the way to North London? I'm just holding a lotus flower. That's it. But then one person, one of his most advanced disciples, just smiled back, and he thought, yeah, he understood. So sometimes it's just an image, but images are multifaceted. Images talk to the right side of the brain. images are so rich in meaning, they're so alive. That is a great way of connecting to the Dharma. And there are many images here. A candle. So poetry, myths, and symbols, they're all, poetry uses words, but it is more in that image kind of, has the flavor of image. Another way, and that's the one most of you talked about, is analogies, parables, stories, similes. So you get a sense of what the Buddha was trying to transmit, to entice you to do as well, to see reality. He would do that with similes. So there are some that once he said enlightenment, this seeing reality as it is, we do call it enlightenment. So in order to see reality, when you see it, it's a bit like you've been carrying a burden for a long time. Let's imagine you're carrying a suitcase, wouldn't work. Imagine your suitcase hasn't got wheels anymore and you're carrying it for a long time. And then after a long time, you just put it down. That kind of relief. I don't need to carry this anymore. He said that is what seeing reality as it is, or being enlightened, that's how it feels like. Or another analogy he used, you're in a really dangerous jungle and you manage to, come out of the jungle alive and safe. That wouldn't speak to us very much, wouldn't it? It did work in India. We've got parks here in the UK, we've got parks. But, how would it be? Maybe you could think you're in a war zone, but you come out of it safe. So this is also that kind of relief. Or peace, happiness. Now he used another one that I think is much more related to our life nowadays. He said, imagine you've got lots of debts, lots and lots of debts, and you don't know how you're going to pay these people back. All of a sudden, then you gain, I don't know how come, but you get a large sum of money. Say you win the lottery, for example. You don't owe any money anymore. I thought fascinating that he said that 2,500 years ago. Obviously didn't use the word money, didn't exist, I think. Don't know. Delete that. Or being released from a prison. So these are all similes that the Buddha used. Another really interesting way of transmitting the Dharma, of teaching the Dharma or sharing the Dharma is by exemplification. You behave in a way that is kind, generous, that you're really you're considering people, aware. So you exemplify that. That for me is one of my favorites as well. It's very subtle and you just notice, that person, they are exemplifying the Dharma. It's a great way of reflecting and learning the Dharma. Another interesting way of teaching the Dharma it's not the Buddha himself in the scriptures, it's a really advanced practitioner, also enlightened, called Vimalakirti. So once someone asked him, what's the essence of the Dharma? And Vimalakirti was just silent. So it's the silence, but was described as a thunder-like silence. So again, paradoxes, isn't it? A thunder, I only know a thunder existed because I heard it. So how can it be a thunder-like silence? It's as noisy as a thunder, but silent. In the same story of Vimalakirti, there is also another interesting dimension. another world where the Dharma is transmitted via perfume or fragrance. Then, I don't know about you guys, my mind then is completely shattered on that one. How? How can you do that? Perfume? But, you know, we're talking about our senses. That's how you communicate. So maybe it is possible. So we talked about communicating this thing that is not possible to be communicated because our mind needs to transform in order to understand it. So we're talking about words, images, analogies, paradoxes, exemplifying this reality. So there are different ways of communicating the Dharma. Some will be more familiar and useful to you, some will be more difficult. So I know, for example, people who meditate thinking of really challenging every thought they have. So they use words a lot. They keep doing a kind of never-ending inquiry until they shatter their views that are holding them back. That doesn't work for me. What works for me more are images and symbols. So do explore, you know, what parts of the Dharma, what way of communicating the Dharma works more for you, for your mind. One image, Sangharakshita is the guy who founded the order. You know, me and Ratnaprabha and Sumina and Aryachit and people here are part of. So he used an image for the Dharma, which was a golden net. So a net, but made of gold, very, very precious. And it was a poem. He did that in a poem. So he wrote the poem in 1975, I think, and that was it. The poem was there. So with poems, it's like an image, isn't it? You can't really explain, but he was interviewed once and he did try to explain why the golden net was an image for the Dharma. So he said in this interview, for instance, you practice, he said, everything in the Dharma is connected, like in a net. So he said, for instance, you practice the ethical precepts. Even if you just do that, that purifies the mind. And then you move into meditation. So meditation could come naturally from a mind that is more purified. You don't need to learn it. If you practice generosity, kindness, awareness, your mind will move into a more meditative state naturally. So the golden net is the interconnectedness of every aspect of the Buddha's teaching. The different parts of the net are held together. They all support one another. It also came with a warning. He said, that's why also if you meddle with one bit, you meddle with it all. So we need to be open to the Dharma as a whole and not say, oh, I like this bit, I don't like that one. You might not relate to it, but be open to the fact that it's all interconnected. Words describe, I'll go back to words, because that's what I use most of the time. Words can describe concepts and methods. It's interesting that with the thing about seeing black and white, I was reflecting, saying, what can I do? Well, I did something, say in this analogy, I did something to my eyes that then they start seeing in color. So that's also what the Buddha did a lot, showed the method he used, what he did to train, say, his eyes, it's his mind, but in our analogy, our eyes, in order to see in color. So instead of saying that's how color is, you can say, do this and this and this with your eyes, and then you start seeing in color. So in a way, that's what the Buddha did a lot. He taught meditation, which was something completely essential to transforming your mind. By the way, if you're here, you don't want to transform your mind don't be here, because your mind will be transformed. It will improve, actually. So, so he did teach lots of methods: meditate, practice these ethical precepts, which is to be generous, kind, aware. He also described the concepts themselves. For example, that I'm going to describe one concept. If you don't understand the words in Pali or Sanskrit, just don't worry, it's not important. So the scriptures say, oh, the three lakshanas are the three characteristics of all conditioned existence. Dukkha, the unsatisfactory; anitya, the impermanent; and anatman, the emptiness of essential being. Oh, okay, you hear all this, huh? Just the words, you really need to reflect on them. So they're saying basically that things are impermanent and are not substantial, are not there no matter what. They depend on conditions. And because sometimes things that were there are not there anymore, you feel really upset. And so I was thinking, oh, my body's starting to go. Oh, that would be sad. I like being alive. So, you do feel a bit not satisfied with things when they're not there forever and substantial. So there are methods and there are concepts. This is a concept, but even what the Buddha taught that was a concept, it's not really as it is. It's just a way to make you reflect, because you can't understand how things are with the mind we've got. We cannot understand with the mind we've got. So even the concepts like this one I read is also a method to make you work with your mind and get closer to the experience of how reality is. That have you guys seen a film called Arrivals? There was these big beings from another planet, isn't it? And they would just do this, and they would communicate things. Time for them was different. They could see things in a much more, not a time, in a sequence. So they probably wouldn't talk about impermanence in the same way we do. They would probably need other words to describe that. So whatever words the Buddha did use, they're also a method for you to try to understand, but it's not what actually is. I know, it's complicated. And just to finish, one thing about translations. Everything we're saying here, I'm saying all this in English, so it's not even the words the Buddha used. There was that guy in the States, a congressman in the States, who said once they were discussing a law to teach a second language in schools. He was a Christian. They were discussing this law to be compulsory to teach us another language, and the guy said, if English was good enough for Jesus Christ, it's good enough for me. So we Buddhists are very much aware the Buddha didn't speak English. So it's true. That's the worst thing. It is true. So look at translations. Translations have different flavors to it. So I'll just read 3 translations of the second verse of the Dhammapada, which is a really, really old text. So you just get a different sense, see which one speaks to you. They come from the same words, original words. So one says, Experiences are preceded by mind, led by mind, and produced by mind. If one speaks or acts with a pure mind, happiness follows like a shadow that never departs. Another translation. Mind precedes all mental states. Mind is the chief. They are all mind wrought. If with a pure mind a person speaks or acts, happiness follow him like his never departing shadow. Another version. We are what we think. All that we are arises from our thoughts. We are thoughts. We make the world. Speak or act with a pure mind, and happiness will follow you as your shadow, unshakable. So different translations, funny, they all talk about happiness, they all talk about pure mind. Another translation of the same verses talk about pure heart, not a pure mind. So, but they all come from the same place. So if you try to be literal, that literalism is really bad for the spiritual life. But if you try to be literal, remember you're just following the words of a translator, not the original utterance. Just to finish here, one really important thing when we study the Dharma is to reflect. There is a book sold in the bookshop here, but you can always buy it anyway, Amazon or whatever, called The Art of Reflection, written by Ratnaguna, who's another member of our order. And it's great. I used to be a scientist, and I found out I didn't know how to reflect. Reflection is so important, and there are ways of relating to the Dharma. One is you listen or you read. There are books here in the shrine, so you read. It's about the Dharma. You watch talks, on YouTube now, full of talks. Go to Free Buddhist Audio, by the way, it's a great site. Not now, you guys online, not now, later. So you get input, but then reflect on that input. That makes a whole difference. So when Ratnaprabha was introducing this series of talks in, when was it, September? Sometime. He said, he was talking about refuges, and refuges, usually we think a place where you go when there is a storm. You're in trouble, you go to your refuge. What happens then? The storm is gone, you get out of the refuge. Sometimes you forget about the refuge. But he was talking about for a baby eagle, correct me if I'm wrong, a baby eagle has a refuge, it's the nest, when they don't know how to fly. And the baby eagle's refuge is being in that nest where it's fed, where it's safe. But then later on, the eagle grows and learns how to fly. And then the refuge is the whole sky, is where the eagle can actually see where it can eat, see the world, see it's where it feels safe. So I thought that was brilliant. You get a symbol. You don't just stay with that, oh yeah, my refuge. You reflect on that. So it kind of becomes more your own experience with that concept or that experience. So it's really important that you reflect. And then the more you learn and then reflect, then the Dharma will kind of realize. You can't control that, but you can observe it, realizing it. You can observe yourself becoming kinder, more aware. So do rejoice in that. It's really important to notice your progress. So reflect, but remember it's a dance here between your way of relating to the Dharma and what your teachers and the scriptures say. Don't go completely off-piste, always come back to this dance between your understanding and other people, especially more experienced people, understanding. There'll be,
Can I take a picture of what you just read out after?
sorry,
And can I just take a picture after
a picture of what?
what you just read out? Like,
The,
Dhammapada
I can give you
translation.
my notes.
yeah.
Or actually get the book, The Art of Reflection. He also, Ratnaguna also compares
Okay.
this three translations. Okay, just to finish, so we got 10 minutes for questions. One of Bante's teachers had a school, and the motto of that school was radiate love, cherish the Dharma, and live united. So these are the three jewels: radiate love, relating to the Buddha's jewel, cherish the Dharma, obviously the Dharma, and live united, about the Sangha, the community of practitioners. So I just decided to practice what I'm saying. So I went to the dictionaries and had a look at what cherish actually means. English not being my first language, I'm always curious about words. So cherish could be protect and care for someone or something lovingly. Love. To love, protect, and care for someone or something that is important to you. The Dharma is a jewel, it's important. To keep or cultivate with care and affection. So again, affection, something emotional there. And to remember or hold an idea or belief in a deeply felt way. Deeply felt, it's really there. So it's interesting that the Dharma is there. Cherish the Dharma doesn't mean just, take what you want from the Dharma and, just use it. Actually, protect it. Protect and care for the Dharma you are practicing, for the Dharma you're learning. Now, just to finish, nothing of, we wouldn't be talking about the Dharma if we're not for all the practitioners that practice from the time of the Buddha in a direct lineage. From the time of the Buddha, first just oral expression, words being said and heard and then written down, and now many recorded. We needed people practicing. So it's really interesting. We talked about the Sangha. You will, if you come in December, sometime 4 weeks' time, Pranya Ghosha will be talking about the Sangha. So they are deeply related, those two jewels as well.